Hello, everyone. Night 6 here in Budapest, Hungary, 2023 World Athletics Championships. It took 6 days, but Jamaica has their first gold medal of the championships. Make it 2. Danielle Williams, massive upset in the women's 100 hurdles. She's your champion. Jasmine Camacho-Quinn, the Olympic champ, has to settle for second. Toby Amasan, the world record holder, didn't even make the podium. Then Antonio Watson, the 21-year-old, he gets gold number 2 for Jamaica, men's 400 meters. That was a chaotic event. Jamaica almost had 3, actually. They were 2 centimeters away from winning the long jump, went 2, 3, 4 in that. Instead, it was Miltos Tentoglou of Greece taking the gold. As you can tell here, we didn't actually have any distance finals, but we've still got some other stuff to discuss. Femke finally got her gold medal, just like Rojo. Rojo said she might one day get it. She got it tonight. We had some chaos in the concourse going from the warm-up track to the main stadium. There was a collision between 2 golf carts. Noah Lyles was involved in the collision. So was Andrew Hudson of Jamaica, who has been advanced to the 200-meter final because of this. So craziness there. We'll talk about that. We also had qualifying heats of the men's 5,000 and the men's 800 semifinals. So that final is now set. Big news in the men's 5K. Joshua Cheptegei, the Olympic champion, is out. He's withdrawn due to a foot injury, maybe protecting himself for that marathon debut in Valencia in December. We still got a bunch of stuff to talk about. We might do some previews of the distance finals we've got upcoming, give you a sense of the meet as a whole. We'll still have some fun here tonight. Jonathan Gault here in Budapest with Weldon Johnson. How you doing tonight, Weldon?
Doing well tonight, John. Yeah, no distance finals, but people were still talking about Jakob Ingebrigtsen in the mix zone.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you tried to talk to him. You got the one English question in there, right, Weldon?
I said, Jakob, how do you feel about last night? And he's walking off. He turns back and goes, about last night? And then I was like, yeah. Or how do you feel after last night? And he kept walking. And then the Norwegian media wanted to interview me. They're like, how do you feel about Jakob's reaction? And I was like, I generally like Jakob. I am curious how he feels about last night now, after last night. So I could have maybe phrased, how do you feel after last night? But I still want to know how he feels about last night. Does he have a different assessment of the race? But who knows? That may change, but he'll never get last night back. Josh Kerr, you're still the 1,500-meter gold medalist. And Jakob turned his sights to the 5K. I was glad to see him out there. That was sort of one big question mark. But John, do we start with the 5K prelims, the 800? I think we should start with the sprints.
Yeah, they earned it. It's the final. And I think we just go in chronological order here. Women's 100 hurdles final. This was interesting because coming into this meet, I thought, okay, one of 3 women is probably going to win it. It's either going to be Amasan, who is the world record holder and defending champion, had been running well this season, then gets a provisional suspension for her whereabouts failures, which she did not want to talk about in Budapest. She makes it to the final. It looked pretty good, but then gets 6th, kind of has an off race. No one ran particularly fast in this one, by the way. 12:43 by Danielle Williams was the winning time. Which, again, she was not one of these 3 I expected to be contending for the title. The other 2 were Jasmine Camacho-Quinn, Puerto Rico, the Olympic champion, and Kenny Harrison, who'd also been running fast and ran 12:24 in the first round. I guess you throw Nia Ali, the 2019 world champion and U.S. champion, in that discussion coming in, but I think based on the rounds here, I was feeling it was probably going to be Harrison, Camacho-Quinn, or Amasan. Turns out Danielle Williams, who shocked everyone in Beijing 8 years ago by winning the gold. That was a year when we were talking about Americans' sweep of the medals. They had 8 of the top 10 times, ended up not medaling at all. And Williams won it in a shocker. This one, same exact thing. Here's what Danielle Williams' 2023 season looked like in the lead up to the World Championships. We'll just start with the LA Grand Prix at the end of May. She got 6th in that one. She goes to Atlanta and wins 12:62 into a 1.5 headwind. That's the first and only win of the season she had leading into this. 3rd in the New York City Grand Prix, 12:33 wind aided, so that's pretty fast. 3rd at the Jamaican Championships, 5th at the Silesia Diamond League, 2nd in Lucerne in Switzerland. And then what does the world champion do in her final race before Worlds? 12.70 for sixth place at the Ed Murphy Classic in Memphis on August 4th. She comes in here, 12.51 first round, 12.50 second round. She was third in both of those races, was not even in the top two in her heat. But when it mattered the most, she ran her best time of the season, 12.43. And Camacho Quinn, Harrison, Amazon, they were all a little off their game for whatever reason. I don't know. 12.43 was enough to win. Danielle Williams, you got to tip your hat to her. She got it done.
Whatever reason, John, I honestly think it's the pressure. I mean, you can say that. Look at what Amazon did last year. But
Amazon and Camacho Quinn have won global titles. Camacho Quinn won the Olympics. Amazon set a world record and then ran 12.06 in the World Championship final. These women have been under pressure before.
I still think it can get to you. But Williams, she was the world champion in 2015. And that year, I mean, that was crazy, John, because the U.S. was pretty good that year. She ran 12.57 to win the world championship title. This year, I mean, give her credit. She ran her best. You don't have to be the fastest person in the world. You have to be the fastest on that day. 12.50 in the semis was a season's best. That gets her in the final only on time. 12.44. It's the best she's done all season, and everyone else didn't rise to the occasion.
She ran her best race of the season in the final, and the rest of the field, for the most part, ran subpar compared to what they've done this year. Look at Kenny Harrison. The way she blazed through these prelims and semis, I'm like, this could be finally the year. Kenny Harrison, first it was, oh, she can't get it done at the championships. Then it was, okay, she can get second. You know, she was second in 2019. She was second in 2021 at the Olympics. She did win World Indoors in 2018, but the Global Outdoor Championships, she's had many shots to win. She gets on the podium again tonight, but this was an opportunity to hit. You run 12.24 in the first round, 12.33 in the semis, but in the final, you can only manage 12.46. I mean, come on. You've shown you can do it. It's not easy to run fast 3 days in a row, but like, you know, it was there. It was there for the taking if she had her A game.
Yeah, I mean, she repeats either one of her previous races. She walks away with a gold medal today.
But you can say that about some of these other. I mean, these other women. Some of them have run this fast as well. I mean, you can say if Harrison was the only person who underperformed relative to their other races, I would say, oh, the pressure got to her. The fact that multiple athletes. I mean, Amazon's under this sort of pressure. She's been kind of stressed the last month. She's had a lot of attention on her, so I can kind of understand why she might be not as good as last year. But Camacho Quinn, I was pretty confident in her. Like she's a pretty big meet performer, has medaled the last 2 years, and 12.44, not a disaster, but not good enough to win gold.
Yeah, and people are asking about Toby Amundsen. I mean, one of the big stories I think at the World Championships, off the track, was her getting this whereabouts suspension that was revoked. She is charged with 3 missed tests. She appealed it. She won her appeal. The AIU said said publicly that yesterday they were going to come out with is a dossier the right word, or some sort of document sort of outlining the charges that they had against Amundsen and why they thought, they were in the right.
The decision. They were going to release the decision of the disciplinary tribunal that ruled in her favor.
And they were going to strike out some personal stuff or something. It still hasn't come out. Now, they need to issue, I think, something publicly. They hold athletes to the most strict standards. If they say they're going to do something and they don't do it, we need an explanation. I'm sorry. And Amundsen doesn't want to talk about this at all. She kind of got short with Cathal Dennehy a couple nights ago. Tonight she comes through and is talking to the media. She's done a bunch of interviews, and someone says, how with this whole ordeal, how's your fitness? And she's like, I finally can talk about it. And she starts talking about her fitness. And then
she wasn't just talking about her fitness. She was talking about how it's been very stressful for her. She was starting to talk about I had a lot of support from people and I relied on that, and it's been difficult. It seemed like she was willing to address it, and it was after the final. She doesn't have any more races here. So I thought it was worth a try again to say, hey, you've said you're innocent throughout this whole process. They cleared you, but why did they charge you in the first place? If you were innocent, can you that was what I asked her, and she didn't want to engage with it. She actually got frustrated because She was like, we're having such a good interview. Why do you got to go and ask this? And kind of explained to her, I'm like, look, this is my only chance to ask you this question. I don't think if I called you up tomorrow, you'd be willing to have a conversation on the record. I'm taking my shot. She doesn't want to talk about it. That's her prerogative. But, that's my job as a journalist.
I agree. But then media was saying, why is the Western media doing this? They'll twist what she says anyway. I'm like, it's her opportunity and it's the most legitimate question. And if she doesn't want to talk about it, you say, I'm sorry, I'm not going to talk about that now, and just move on.
Which is what she did.
Essentially what she did. But I want more from this. And I could see her getting angry with the AIU. Obviously, they're going to have their reasoning, but like her reputation, it's not what it was beforehand. I'll say that much.
Yeah, but
people are going to cast aspersions on her for whatever reason.
We'll get the chance when this decision comes out. The facts will be laid out, and then people will be able to render a judgment. What we have right now, all we know is the decision that the AIU charged her. They thought she committed a whereabouts violation. That's why they charged her. The disciplinary tribunal ruled that she did not. But we don't know the specifics. And until we do, I don't want to speculate on, how guilty she should be, because we don't have the facts of the case yet.
And, people are saying, oh, do you think the fact she didn't medal raises suspicions? No, not to me at all. She's under a lot of stress. And Brian here in the comments has got a good thing. LRC poster rule number 1. Anything is a valid reason to raise doping suspicions. It's true. An athlete does well, suspicious. Athlete underperforms, suspicious. So...
yeah, they're too consistent. Must be doping. Oh, look, they're all over the place. They must be doping.
Right. And I don't know. I mean, she answered questions. I like her at least talking to the media. She had a smile on her face the whole time, and you could sense she did sense relief. And then with Kenny Harrison, you could tell she wanted more, but she was relieved to go home with a medal because last year at Worlds, she didn't make it out of the first round, I think. So the hurdles is tough, especially the women's hurdles. I mean, the men's, you obviously can hit a hurdle, and like Daniel Roberts had a bad history until this World Championships. But the women's hurdles, they're so low. I mean, like even going way back to like Gail Devers or something, you hit hurdles, you can have disaster. It can, take you from going, getting the gold to off the podium. So
Lolo Jones, 2008. Yeah, it happens. And, they went, from what I could tell, I didn't see any massive, like someone hitting a hurdle and totally torpedoing their race. But the other crazy thing about this, Danielle Williams at these championships, she actually has been relatively consistent. She was 6th last year at Worlds. 2019, she got the bronze. She won in 2015. Yet was still acting this is a huge surprise. And it's because she hadn't done anything to indicate this was possible this season. But it is kind of funny how you can be a 2-time if you're a 2-time world champion, but both times you won, it was massive upsets. Like, how are you kind of viewed? Like, I guess you're just viewed as the consummate championship performer. She's kind of, I don't know. Kenny Harrison medals. I'm not going to call Kenny Harrison a choker, but this is someone who consistently has gotten multiple times has gotten their best race of the season out when she absolutely did the most. So that is impressive to see. All right. Shall we move on to the men's 400 meter final? So this one was, I had no idea who was going to win this one. I thought going in, Stephen Gardner was the favorite. He's the world and Olympic champion. Sorry. The Olympic champion. It was the 2019 world champion. He didn't win last year. He was hurt. He goes down in the first round. So it's in the semifinals. Sorry. So looks like the gold medal totally up for grabs, especially because Wade Van Niekerk, who had been running great, had been undefeated coming into Worlds, he doesn't look amazing either. He was only 3rd in his semi, so needed a time qualifier. And then you've got other guys who we hadn't really considered that much running personal bests in the semis. Antonio Watson, the 21-year-old Jamaican, 44.13. He leads all the qualifiers. Matt Hudson-Smith, who was the bronze medalist last year, but had been, I think, kind of banged up this year. He runs a European record. And then Vernon Norwood, 31 years old, I think, at this point. He runs a PB, 44.26. So I'm just thinking, like, who the heck is going to win this final? It was like I could see almost anyone in the final winning it. the question I had about Watson was, would he be able to replicate what he did in the semis? Sometimes we see someone blast the semis. They're a little cooked for the final, but he had a day in between. So he clearly recovered well, and he was the guy. It was pretty exciting, but he beats out Hudson Smith. And then third place, I mean, I want to give credit to whoever put this on Twitter. It was a very interesting observation. We all knew this year, Weldon, there would be someone switching from the 400-meter hurdles to the 400 and coming home with a medal in Budapest. As an American, went to college in the SEC, and we were all talking about Quincy Hall, right? Former NCAA 400 hurdles champ at South Carolina, PB 44.37 to get the bronze medal in the flat 400. So that's really impressive.
See someone here in the comments complaining that the contest scores aren't updated. I'm actually working on that now. Antonio Watson and Matthew Hudson Smith, they weren't even in the contest. They hadn't been running that well before Worlds, that means. I'm going to look up what Antonio Watson had done before Worlds, but he's a Glen Mills athlete.
He was second at the Jamaican Championships, and we also saw this. Danielle Williams was only third in the Jamaican Championships. But actually, looking at his other races, well, he didn't really run that much. That was his only defeat, but he ran 44.54, which is, a fast time. He won a couple other races in Jamaica. Then he won at the Ed Murphy Classic, 44.69. And then he ran 44 in both rounds in Budapest, 44.77 in the prelims, 44.13. So once he got here, it was pretty clear. Like after the semis, it was pretty clear he was a threat to win. But he hadn't raced on the Diamond League circuit at all. He's still only 21 years old, born on September 11th, 2001. And, when someone's just winning at home, you're not really thinking this guy's going to win, because we're looking at who's running against the best of the best, who's running the Diamond League schedule. And that was Wade Van Niekerk was cleaning up in the Diamond League. And then you had Gardner kind of just continuing to win whatever races he does, doing the Stephen Gardner thing. So, we didn't really consider him. Maybe we should have, given that no one had run super, super fast. Gardner was 43.7. But once he got here, he picked it up, and now clearly a guy to watch. Only 21 years old, he could get even faster.
It's sort of crazy. Jamaica hasn't had, I don't know, I think you're like a sprint nation. If you go to 100 to 200, you should have some good 400 guys. I mean, the U.S. does. But Jamaica really hasn't. I think they'd won a world title at the very first Worlds in the 400. Took 40 years. And Glen Mills, Usain Bolt's coach, gets this one. So, and the kid's 21. So now you just got to be on the lookout for this, because I feel like this year the event was pretty soft. This and the 8, I think, are pretty soft.
Yeah, I mean, 44.22 is not a very fast time for the world champion in the 400 meters. It's actually faster than what they ran last year, but that's because 44.29 also not a particularly fast time. But I look at these podium. Okay, Matt Hudson Smith was on the podium last year, but Quincy Hall was only third at USA's. Now, granted, he showed up and ran a PB here in the final, so credit to him for that. But I wouldn't have picked the guy who was third at USA's to make it onto the podium at the World Championships,
Yeah, and any of these guys, like Vernon Norwood, I think he just missed the medal, 0.02. I mean, a guy like that, you only have to run 44 points to be the world champion. To you really run this race, there's a possibility like any one of these guys who walks away as the world champion. But this kid's so young, you could see it, fast forward. I mean, how many worlds from now? Let's say, add 6 years from now, 2029 or something. This kid's going to be 27 years old.
Well, I see it going two ways. He could improve, and then he's actually, all right, this guy's a legitimate star. He's running 43 mid, 43 high, and consistently winning titles. Or this is an event that sort of seems primed for a new phenom to emerge in the next year, whether it's from Bahamas or United States or someone else. Maybe it's Muzala Samakonga, the young Zambian who ran 43.9 this year but had to withdraw from Worlds. I feel like there's going to be someone we haven't even heard of yet who might be able to make the podium in Paris next year, because that's how the 400 kind of works. You get these guys, young guys, come out and you can win it in your foot. Basically what Watson did this year. Who was talking about Antonio Watson as a world champion this time last year. I certainly wasn't. So I could see that happening next year with whoever, athlete X to be named.
All right, the final track final of the night, the women's 400-meter hurdles. Femke Bol gets it done. I mean, I think this was expected, but
yeah, I would say she was one of the heaviest favorites in the entire meet.
She didn't, coast on her worlds. She ran 51.7.
Let me get the final time here.
I think it's the only second time ever in her life she's run under 52 seconds.
That's right. Yeah.
So props to her. I mean,
51.70 was her winning time
for dominant victory. She wins by 1.1 seconds over Shamir Little, and then Rochelle Clayton of Jamaica is third. There weren't a lot of doubts about Femke Bol coming in to this one at all. I mean, into the championships, but after the 4x4 mixed relay debacle on the first day where she face plants, there's question marks. Is this going to affect her confidence? Whatnot. No, she's really delivered. And I think obviously it would be better if Sydney was here, right? I want to see the best matchup, but Femke Bol can go to her grave being a world champion. Who knows? She could be the Olympic champion next year. Who knows what's going to happen to Sydney? Maybe Sydney focuses on the 400. Maybe she tries a double. Maybe it doesn't work out. I mean, there's lots of question marks, but I mean, we're seeing this from so many other athletes. You can be dominant in an event and not walk home with the global title. So for her to come out and dominate tonight, well done. Shamir Little was emotional afterwards. She medaled way back, I think 2015.
Silver in 2015, yeah.
And that's when she was like a kid, like in Texas A&M. And they're like, which one was more meaningful to you? And she's like, no question, like this one. I think the first one, you kind of, if it's, your first worlds, and it's just, I don't know if you take it for granted, but maybe it comes a bit too easy. And she got a little emotional in the mix zone when asked about, I think, her mom, but good to see her run. I mean, she ran a solid race today. So,
yeah, she was surprisingly close to Femke Bol through the first 2/3 of this race. She was clearing the hurdles very close to what Bol was coming through. And I'm like, could we see some sort of crazy upset? And then the last 100 meters, Bol showed her class and pulled away and ran one of her greatest races. So there really was no doubt. But I appreciate Shamir Little for going for it and for holding on for the silver. It is cool to see because Shamir Little, remember, she was at Texas A&M. She would compete with those big funky glasses and the bow in her hair. It was very distinctive. It was a cool look. And she went to the World Championships that summer in Beijing and got the silver. She's someone you're thinking like, okay, she could own this event for the next few years. And then it just goes to a totally different level. We couldn't have seen that coming. But, Vernon Norwood was the same. Vernon Norwood was an NCAA star at LSU that year. And, you kind of think, oh, he can keep improving and be there. No, he's just kind of been pretty consistent for a lot of his career and made teams, but never really been a huge medal contender. And then suddenly this year, he's almost on the podium. So props to those athletes for sort of sticking it out, riding the highs and lows that come with being a pro and taking the opportunity, or at least doing their best to take the opportunity when it comes. Shamir Little was able to do that and get the silver medal. And, Vernon Norwood, I don't think could really be all that upset. 44.39. He can be upset for not medaling, but it's not like he ran a bad race. He ran a good race in the final. He just didn't medal. The other thing that's interesting, Antonio Watson, I was looking at his Tilis Tapia profile here, Weldon. He ran the 400 a lot in high school. He was the world youth champion in 2017. But the last 2 years, he ran 1 400 in 2022, 2 in 2021. He only finished one of them, and 2 in 2020. He was really running a lot of hundreds and 200s and wasn't, by Jamaican, like in terms of making a Jamaican team, not really that close. He was 10:21 was his PB last year. So switched to the 400 and he's the world champion in his first year running it seriously as a pro. So yeah, maybe some people in the comments are saying, what if like Tobago or Lyles stepped up to the 400? Could they win this event? I mean, maybe. If Michael Norman's healthy, it could be there for him. Lyles is not going to be doing this event, by the way. He knows the glamour and the glory and the money is in the 100. But he's got the pedigree with his parents and the speed endurance. I think Noah Lyles will be a very, very good 400 runner.
I mean, I agree with the 100 thing, but it's hard to do. But Michael Johnson's a legend in the U.S. I'll say that much. Do you think some of that's, John, dependent on him winning the Olympics in the U.S.? I mean, granted, I guess he did crush the world record.
He had one of the most amazing Olympic sprint doubles in history with an iconic world record that he destroyed the world record.
But you think if that had been like a Tokyo Olympics, he'd be as famous?
Maybe not, but he also won another gold in Sydney. What does he have in his profile? 12 golds, no silver. Like, he's the greatest 400-meter runner of all time. I think Michael Johnson would still be fairly famous. Having an iconic moment with the gold shoes in Atlanta, yes, that made him a bigger legend, but at least in track and field, he'd still be pretty iconic for all those wins he had in Worlds.
Looking here at some of the comments. Bad Clam says, his 12 to 13-year-old boys think the Let's Run live recap show is best. All right, that's great. We said, Bad, I hope you're a Supporters Club member. We said high scores are free for the Supporters Club, so you want to pretend your sons, they're not even high school yet. Middle schoolers are free too, but I don't know if a lot of our podcasts are appropriate for middle schoolers.
I feel like I don't really curse very much. I certainly try to avoid the F word when we do this. So there's a
little checkbox for all podcasts, whether there's explicit language. We can start checking this. But if you're enjoying this podcast, we're talking sprints. This isn't our expertise. If you're enjoying this one, you'll really love our normal podcast. We're having daily podcasts from Worlds. If you don't want to watch the show live, you got to be a Supporters Club member. Join today. Let'sRun.com/subscribe. Not only you get the extra podcast, all of the Let's Run content, you join the coolest club in running, and you can save like 20% on full price running shoes. So the running shoe costs $150. Right now, you'll save 20%. That's $30 you save. You come out ahead.
And at these meets, if you show up at a World Championship or World Cross or wherever we have these meetups, if you're in the Supporters Club, we'll buy you beer, and you never know who's going to turn up. Right. It could be the parents of a future Olympic or world champion, maybe in the 1500. I mean, you never know.
Last night, great turnout for those of you guys who didn't hear it, and gals. The first people there, I think the first people, maybe one.
They were the very first people.
They beat me there. Or Niels Loros, the 18-year-old Dutch sensation, who, if he was an American, would have the 800, 1500, 3K, and 5K high school records. They were there. Narv Nordas, who was just, at this time last night, just some random Norwegian runner. Now the bronze medalist of 1500.
He wasn't a random Norwegian runner. He was a 329 guy.
His roommate was there. He's now got a bronze medal. And who knows? Jamin was there. I mean, Let's Run forum posting legend. So
it was a good time.
Good time in Hungary. And we started the show a little earlier tonight. Hopefully, so John and I get some sleep. We thought it was a lighter workload tonight. But
it will be. I mean, I didn't get to bed until 5 a.m. last night, and Weldon was still up when I went to sleep. So
Rojo was going to the airport. John and I were still working at 6 a.m. I'm not sure how that's possible, but like producing the podcast, putting it out. I'm not sure what.
I don't know. It was the night of the men's 1500 final, and it took me. I'm not one of those people who just files a story immediately and gets it out for the morning paper the next day. The internet era, either you have an instant deadline or you can take your time and just publish it the next day. And I usually go the latter approach.
People are pointing out Noah Lyles put 45-1 in high school. Noah Lyles' dad was not world class.
Well, he made the U.S. National class. He made the U.S. relay team, and he was like ran in the heats at Worlds one time.
I guess that's world class if you're top 20 in the world in something. But
if you were from a different country, he would have been able to make it to Worlds.
U.S. national class, world class in any other country. So, but no, I don't think he'll run the 400. Michael Norman, man, oh my God! If you just showed up, you'd have walked away with this thing. I mean, not at this point, but
he's not healthy, but.
I don't know. I guess that's life, right? You want to fly close to the sun, and if you want to be a legend in the sport, you got to try new things. But what about just being a two-time world champion?
I don't have any problem if he likes the 100 more and he won and he's run 9. It's not like this guy hasn't run fast. He's run 9.86. His PB was the same as Noah Lyles at the start of this season. So I really didn't have an issue of him switching to the 100. I thought it was exciting. It's just he wasn't able to stay healthy. Like if Michael Norman stayed healthy, I'm not saying he would have won Worlds, but would have been much more interesting, I think, if he was healthy this year in the 100 and getting actually to see what he can do instead of this injury depleted version. Okay, let's go to some of the prelims. We've got a couple of distance finals set on the men's side. Actually, we've only got one set of distance prelims left. It's the women's 800 semis will be tomorrow. Then it's all finals the rest of the way. We've got to do our Jakob Ingebrigtsen segment. Someone started the message boards. Don't do this, people. Started the message boards just saying Jakob scratches from the 5K. And they don't link to a source because it wasn't true. But I'm just like, I go on the message boards and I rely on people sometimes to update me on stuff I may have missed. And I had tried to take a nap and I'm looking at this as we're going over the stadium and I'm like, wait, Jakob's out. Like I need to yell. And then before I yelled anything to Weldon, did a little Twitter searching, Googling, couldn't see anything. He ran the race. Apparently he did tell Norwegian media, he still wasn't totally 100%, but he looked fine. He made it through. This heat he was in, though, the first heat was kind of nuts. So from 4th place to 9th place in the first semifinal was separated by 22 hundredths of a second. And only the top 8 made it. So that is 5 guys right there kicking for the 6 guys. 6 guys kicking for 5 spots. The odd man out, Andreas Almgren of Sweden. Nava Nordas, who said he was going to do a threshold workout after winning the 1500 bronze last night. He got the final spot in the final by 2 hundredths of a second. Paul Chelimo was only 6 hundredths of a second away from being eliminated. He was pretty far back as well in that last lap. Like, he didn't make his big move up until that last 100, and he got there, but he had to really work for it. Abdi Nur also made it through. Ingebrigtsen, Hagas Gebrewedt. Mokatia won the heat. He looked the best of anyone, but it's only a prelim. And we did talk to Nordas after the race. He stopped for a minute, and he said he did not run the threshold session last night. He wanted to, but he was in doping control too long. By the time he got out, he wasn't able to do it. And he said maybe it wasn't actually the strict adherence to double threshold training, Weldon, but he just wanted to run the workout so that he could convince his coach not to have him run the 5K tonight. But Gert put his foot down. He said, no, you're not doing the workout. It's too late. You'll have to run the 5K prelims instead. So Nordas, I thought this guy, I thought it was a game. Well, I guess, it's one day later. Maybe he is pretty tired. He's on a high. But he ran the race. He's in the final. So that was heat 1. Anything strike you from heat 2, Weldon?
Well, heat 1, I mean, Chelimo, we were like, oh man, he's not going to make it. You just see those guys, and I think he was like the 9th one.
He was off the back for part of this, like not totally dropped, but like looking like he was kind of struggling to hold on.
And then we're like, Nordas kind of looked like he had it, then he stops, and you're like, did he get past? I wasn't sure if Chelimo, because we were looking sort of head on. And Nordas is like, I'm like, hey, what happened? He's like, I thought I was in 7th. I didn't realize I was in 8th. I let up, and that Swedish guy almost passed me. So, in that first heat, Katir rebounded well from the 1500. He's obviously a factor. Gebrhiwat's blasted a good one this year. He's obviously a factor. Ingebrigtsen's a factor. And Nur's your dark horse. Chelimo, I don't think this is his year, but he's done it in the past. But good to see him in the final. So that's like 1, 2, I think 3 potential medalists in this. Well, 3 potential medalists in the dark horse in heat 1. Heat number 2, Luis Grijalva ended up taking it. The guy, I mean, he was 4th at Worlds last year. I assume he's the only Guatemalan athlete at the World Championships. I mean, it's cool. Hoka sponsors Guatemalan national team now, which is smart.
Yeah.
He just obviously, or maybe it's obvious, but he runs like he belongs here. He just takes the heat. Kajelcha's 2nd. Mohamed, good to see him make it. Aragawi makes it. I mean, all the guys you would think.
Oscar Chelimo, the silver medalist last year, who hadn't really done, or bronze medalist last year, who hadn't done a ton this year. He shows up, he makes it, so he's in. Jacob Kropp, the silver medalist from last year, he's in. Couple notable people who didn't make it through. Thierry Ndiku Muanayo, getting better at pronouncing that, from Spain, formerly of Burundi. He made it to Worlds finally. I remember he sat out last year because he wanted to transfer allegiances. He missed out on the final. This is a 7:25 guy. He won the Monaco Diamond League last year when Grant Fisher set the American record. Ran 7:25. He couldn't make the World Championship final. So tough one for him. Sean McGordy, the third American, he just said, he felt he raced pretty well in terms of putting himself in position. He just got dropped and couldn't kick. And I think part of that might have been the heat. Part of it might have been he was tired from the 10K, but didn't totally feel like himself. He's out. So those were kind of the notable ones. And then, of course, Cheptegei withdrawing before the race, citing a foot injury. But I want to go to this comment here. Man after my own heart, Rojo's #1 fan. Well, JG here agrees with you. I don't know which one, but one of Mike Smith's athletes is going to medal in the 5K. I think I'm with you, man. Grijalva looked fantastic. And the way he was talking, he was saying, like, last year I got 4th. I was only 2/10 out of a medal. He was the happiest 4th placer in the world last year. Saw him in the Wild Duck afterwards, still in his Guatemala singlet.
It was like he medaled.
Yeah, it was. He's like, I beat Cheptegei. Like, I'm freaking out. But
was this guy even 4th at NCAAs ever?
No, he's 2nd at NCAAs to Coupe-Tier his senior year. But he had a different perspective on that race today. We were talking about it. He's like, yeah, last year I was 4th, and I was in good position for most of the race, but then 800, I kind of got shuffled back. I think he was only like 9th at the bell and ran some people down to get 4th. But he's like, I don't want to do that again this year. I want to put myself in there. He was inspired by Josh Kerr. He watched that race and he's like, Josh Kerr put himself in position to do something. And then he took his shot and he won. And Grijalva said the same thing. He's like, I want to do that. I want to at least take my shot. And if I finish lost, I can be okay with that because I won't have any regrets. So I love the attitude. He's feeling confident. He thinks a slower race helps him. He's like, look.
He kind of said a faster race, I don't medal, right?
He basically was like, look, I can hang at 12:50, but I'm better at 13 flat. I'm even better at 13:10. So he wants a slower race. He was 3rd in Florence, which had a lot of the good guys, and that was a 12:52 race. But, I don't think he's going to be running 12:40 or something if Barrega is ripping it. Sorry, not Barrega, Aragawi. But he looked good. And then Abdi Noor, he didn't really they were all kicking for that spot, but I thought he looked fine. He was up there most of the way. I'm high on Abdi Noor. I'm picking him to medal. I picked him in the prediction contest. I said any American. I'm covering my bases. I do get Chalimo with that one as well, but I think it's going to be Abdi Noor. I wouldn't be shocked if Grijalva medaled, but the reason I like Noor is he was laying it out. He looked great at USA's. He closed really well. If it's that kind of race again, which I think it very well could be, he's going to be a factor over the last kilometer. But then he also pointed out these are all the things he's got going for him as opposed to last year when he was 11th, I think, in his first Worlds final. Last year, he did a very long NCAA season. He helped them win cross in November 2021. July 2022, he's running the Worlds final. So he had a lot more races under his belt. He had a lot more races in his legs at that point. This year, he kind of got a late start, hasn't raced a ton. But he said, I feel really fresh. I didn't have to do the 10K. I didn't have to do the 1500. A lot of these other guys did. I'm feeling good. I'm ready. He didn't want to talk about specifics, but I just liked what I saw from him at USA's, and I liked what I heard from him in the mixed zone. So maybe I'm biased because I've covered him more than some of these other international guys. There are plenty of other very good guys that could beat him out, but I agree with Rojo's #1 fan. I do think a Mike Smith coached athlete has a pretty good shot in this final. To medal.
Good shot. They got a shot. Cheptegei not being in here makes it a lot easier. I'll just say that much. I think Cheptegei, nobody's a lock for a medal, but it's just you're going to beat him every time in a fast race. And with Cheptegei in the race, I think it makes it more likely the race is fast. I could see these guys kind of doing what they did again today. We always think someone's going to push it and try to beat Jakob, but maybe they don't. Maybe they don't push from that far out. But I sort of said earlier, I think in the first heat, there were 3 guys who I thought were like sort of prime medalists. Gebrhiwet, Katir, Ingebrigtsen. Second heat, I'm ignoring the Mike Smith guys. Kajelcha, Aragawa, Chalimo. There's a lot of question marks about
Mohamed's medaled twice. Don't forget Mohamed. I know he hasn't been amazing on the circuit, but he was 6th in the 10K.
I'm just saying, though, John, I'm not ranking Mohamed ahead of Grijalva or
Oh, okay.
Ahmed right now.
Grijalva or Noor, you mean?
Noor, excuse me. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, but these are guys in a Diamond League, fast Diamond League. I would say, okay, that they might drop some of these guys, even though Grijalva did get 3rd in Florence. But in a championship, I don't know. Grijalva's got a pretty good close on him. Noor's isn't bad.
And Jacob Kropp, the Kenyans, man. The men are just not having a very good meet in general, but he didn't look great. I think the top 8 that were clear in this heat, he was 7th. The other Kenyan who made it was Ismail Kipkuri. There was one Kenyan who didn't make it in the first heat. I'm trying to think who that was. Nicholas Kipkuri.
Two Kenyans didn't make it. Cornelius Kemboy didn't even make it either. I mean, Nicholas Kipkuri, I should have mentioned him earlier. 2021 Diamond League winner, 4th in the Olympics. Last year he was the silver medalist at the Commonwealth Games. Him not making the final was a surprise to me, even though him and Kropp, both of them kind of been not that great on the circuit this year.
So they got 4 for having the Diamond League winner. Interesting.
Yeah, the Diamond League. Well, they got 4 entrants. Did Kipkuri? I thought he won the Diamond. No, he won the Diamond League last year. I'm sorry. Aragawi won it in 2021. Yeah, Kipkuri won the Diamond League last year. You would think the Diamond League champion would be in the World Championship final the next year, but no.
Yeah, so that's sort of a surprise. So yeah, those 6 guys I just said, I'm putting them all on paper ahead of those guys. I think it still comes down to, is someone just going to really try to blast the race to keep it away from Jakob? The further someone pushes, if Aragawa just says, "This is it, man, I'm going to go for it," like I do on the circuit, and Kachel's just right there pushing with him, I'm sorry, no medal for, I don't think, any Mike Smith athletes. I think if they let, gosh, how far do I think they need to push it out? I wonder when Jakob started pushing. I think if it comes down to the final mile, yeah, I'll take. I think then they've got a chance,
and that's what I think it's going to be. So that's why I think,
but
they've got a good shot.
Being here, it's hot. It's hotter than I thought it was. People talk a big game, but it's really unlikely, very rare for someone to try to blast 2 miles in hot conditions.
Yeah, I mean, Aragawi has done it in Diamond League races, but didn't do it in the 10K. That was 27:51 winning time. I know that was run a little earlier in the day, but yeah, we say this every time. Oh, maybe if someone tries to really drop him. No, I don't think we're going to see a winning time faster than 12:50.
All right, the final is Sunday. Wow, we're starting to wind this thing down a bit. Of course, I'm doing what we always do on the Let'sRun.com Track Talk podcast. Our apologies, Dark Sky no longer exists, so now we have to check some.
Oh, I already looked. I mean, the high Sunday's going to be very high, 96 degrees in Budapest. I don't think it gets that much hotter than that. But this race isn't until 8 p.m. or so. By then it'll still be in the 80s. It'll be warm, potentially. What's the humidity looking like? Well, 60%. I mean, that's not going to be fun. I don't see anyone really pushing the pace on those conditions.
There's no dew point on this thing. How am I supposed to figure this out?
I mean, it's not going to be a perfect prediction anyway. But yeah, 8:20 p.m. local time. I don't think it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be weather where people are going to be wanting to try to run fast.
Yeah, they're showing a feels like temperature of 82, 83 degrees. It's doable. I think someone might push it for 2 miles. But we also had the men's 800 meter semifinals today. I think if we think the 400 is sort of a broken event this year, I'm putting the men's 800 meters in there as well. Final is set. And this thing is wide open, John. I'm trying to just pull up a list of the finalists here. But on paper for me, Wanyoni and Arop are my 2 favorites for the final.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm just being too simplistic here, but the 3 guys I feel best about medaling are the 3 guys who won their semis tonight. Arop has looked very good in both of his rounds. Wanyoni has looked very good in both of his rounds. And Slimane Moula has a better, I would say he has a better kick than both those guys. He's a closer, and he ran 143.9 and still had a good close tonight. So I like all three of them. It's the chances are that's not going to be your podium because it's the 800. Anything can happen. But their skill sets combined with how they've looked at Worlds so far, I think those are the guys I would pick to medal. Couple interesting storylines here. One, Bryce Hoppel gets in. This is good for the Americans. Last year they had 0 in the semifinals. Now they've at least got one finalist in Bryce Hoppel. It's hard to make 800 finals, So this is Bryce's first go since 2019 at Worlds. He got 4th that year. He was saying how much more experienced he is. I don't know if that necessarily translates to better than 4th place, but he's been around the block. He medaled at World Indoors. He's in the final now. He's run 143 this year. He absolutely could run his way into a medal. It's going to be tough. He's got to beat some good guys, but it's always the case. So he's at least in the mix. If you're in the final, you've got a shot.
Especially this year. I mean, run himself to the medal, John. I think if he runs this A race for even this year, he could win the damn thing. Like that. That's how weak I think this event is.
I don't
year.
see that.
I don't see it. But John, like 5%, 3%.
Yeah.
I mean, if he just nobody expected me to 4th that one year. If it just things click, I mean, just this event is pretty soft this year, and so Simon Mula, who was 5th at Worlds last year, he won his heat. He's won a Diamond League this year. Wanyoni's won 2 Diamond Leagues this year. And Arop, who was, 3rd last year? So these are the top returners from last year. Or no.
We got 2 of the 3 medalists. You've got Arop was bronze, Jamal Sajadi of Algeria, who was silver. They're both in there from last year. You got Mula. You've got Hoppel of Ben. Ben Patterson of Great Britain gets in on time. The other guy, I'll be honest, I'd never heard of this guy before tonight. Shepiso Masalela of Botswana. Closes down, gets the second auto spot in the first heat.
Looked good.
Yeah, he's running in a t-shirt, and he looked strong that last 100 meters. I'm like, who the hell is this guy? Botswana, Nigel Amos, didn't he get suspended? Botswana has another guy? Yeah, turns out they do. So we had to stop him in the mix zone and get his story. He actually trained with Letziel Tobogo's coach until this year, and he switched to Samuel Sepang, who's the brother of 1996 Olympic silver medalist Ezekiel Sepang of South Africa, also former coach of Caster Semenya. And he was like, yeah, my workouts, they've been going really well this year. Been running 48 and 49 and 400 reps. And, I thought this was possible, but he admitted his goal was just to make the final. So he wasn't really expecting anything more than this, but look, he looked pretty good that last 100. And I think we saw tonight, these were the 2 fastest time qualifiers in the history of the World Championships. And 144.04 for Hoppel, 144.23 for Patterson. And I think it's pretty obvious why. It's because we had an extra day between the rounds. Usually they run the prelims and the semis on back-to-back days. This time there was a day between so they could recover more. But there's another day until the final. So we could see a pretty quick final. Hoppel didn't want to make any predictions about it, but I've got a prediction. Marco Arop goes to the front, tries to control it, because that's usually how he runs.
John, is this true? Hoppel is the fastest PR?
He's run 143.30. Wait, is that
no? What about
Wanyoni's run 143.2 this year? Is that? I need to look this up. That
I'm gonna double check.
It's got to be pretty close, but I was pretty sure Wanyoni had done 143.2 at some point this year. Maybe I'm off. Bryce Hoppel 143.23, Monaco 2020. And Wanyoni 143.27. So by 400ths of a second, Bryce Hoppel does have the fastest personal best in this final.
Wow. Bad Clams knows his stuff.
Mm-hmm. Not a bad claim by Bad Clams.
And Max Bergen, the teen sensation who ran 147 at age 15, ran 143 last year, ran 143 this year. did not make the final. But, John, there is a Brit in the final.
Yeah, Ben Pattison. I mean, Great Britain has we know they have a great crop of milers, but they have a bunch of guys who are 143, 144 guys in the 800 meters as well. You know, Daniel Rowden. Like Josh Kerr, I asked him, like, how did you only get 5th at the British Championships? And then you're able to close that quick in the final. He's like, well, we got some guys starting to run fast now. So, yeah, not too bad. I mean, great stuff for Pattison. First world final for him.
He's only 21.
Born on 15th of December, 2001. That's the date I moved from United Kingdom to United States.
Wow.
So,
is this meant to be, folks?
Somewhere when I was boarding a plane at Heathrow, he was being born in the UK. So, yeah, Ben Pattison now in the final. I mean, he was the last time qualifier. I don't really expect much for him, but to even get in the final is a great accomplishment. And look, I didn't expect much from Kyle Langford in 2017, and he almost medaled as well. Would have medaled, in fact, if Kipyegon Bet, who has since been suspended for doping, was stripped of that medal. Kyle Langford was 4th in that race. So, yeah, look, if you're in any of these guys in the final, have a shot at the medals. And then the other interesting thing is, if you look at the people who didn't make it, the first 4 guys out all ran PBs. Mateusz Borkowski of Poland, 144.30. Yanis Mezzine of France, 144.30. Simone Barontini of Italy, 144.34. And Mohamed Atoy of Spain, 144.35. These were very, very fast semifinals. And partially probably because the time qualifiers still exist in the 800. But, you know, we had 18 guys run 144 or faster. It was tough. These are always a grind. And with the extra recovery day in between, you see them run very, very fast.
Am I not being fair to this event? I mean, the fastest time qualifiers ever, and I might go, this event sucks this year.
Yeah, but there's no like one. I mean, it could be Wanyonyi. I do think this guy is a super, super talent, but there's no one who goes out and drops like a 142 or anything like oh, this guy is the new king. This guy owns this event, and maybe it happens in the final, and you know, A-Rock does something like similar to what set Donovan Brazier up for a really fast run, and then Wanyonyi just pulls by him and runs 142. But no, there's no sort of superstar who owns this event currently, but there is a lot of depth, clearly.
John, why don't you tell me Max Bergen's age?
Well, I believe he was born in 2002, like June or something like that. So he's now 21.
When he goes this route, he's always good. Yeah, the kid is still only 21.
I spend a lot of time on Tilis Tapaya, so I can the birth dates. If you're enough on someone's page enough, you kind of get it stuck in your mind.
All right, what about Wanyonyi?
Oh, I did just see it was August 1st, 2004, right? I mean, I knew he was 19. I knew that already.
Yeah, so this event
he was 4th last year when he was 18. This is why I'm saying this guy could be the next mega talent, you know?
And looking at him, and the guy's cut. Like, he's strong, but not too big. Like, not that A-Rup's too big, because I think A-Rup could win this thing. He's my code number 1 favorite. But he just looks like a powerful runner. So it'll be interesting. I spoke to Max Bergen afterwards. I didn't actually speak to him. I just listened to some British guy speak to him. You know, and the guy's just injured all the time, and he had no excuses. Like, I don't know what happened. He was right there and just faded the last 100.
Yeah, when you're not able to run very much and build up your endurance, a championship is not going to favor you. Max Bergen, we've seen a number of times over the last few years, shows up, runs one very impressive race, but cannot make it through well, I mean, he's never been to a global championship before this one, but kind of it makes sense that you wouldn't be able to come back and run quite as well 2 times in 3 days.
So he said 2 things. Like, one, he's like, I may run indoors next year. And like, I'm thinking, what, you got to get hurt? He's never run indoors. He's like, I need more racing experience. But for a guy who's hurt all the time, I'm not sure indoors is the way to go. But who knows? Maybe like it's a different set of muscles or something. Like, I was constantly injured, sort of and ruined my running career. And I started playing soccer with a kid next door to me doing lateral movements, and I got healthy. So maybe something different could help him. I'm not sure indoor track is the best thing. But he's like, I just need to stay healthy. He's had huge Achilles problems this year, but Britain's John, they've got a lot of talent in the mid distances. I mean, we were talking about this earlier. Like Coe, Ovett, Cram, those guys. I mean, are Kerr and Whiteman? I guess they don't have the Olympics, right? Like, but do we just give those guys in the past? I mean, obviously they're more consistent, but are kids 20 years from now like, oh, Kerr and Whiteman, like the golden age of British middle distance running?
I mean, back-to-back gold medals is pretty damn impressive. But what I would say about that is in the 80s, when Coe and Cram and Ovett were running really fast, there were no world championships. There was one in 83, and then 87, there was a 4-year gap. 87, Coe and Ovett were on the downswing by that point. And Cram won in 83. So they all won titles. But I'm saying if they had world championships and Olympics back then, I think they would have been more decorated. And they were also breaking world records, either the mile, the 800, or the 1500. And none of this current British generation is coming close to that. And obviously the current world record is very difficult to break, but
they were the best in the world. These guys are the world champions. There's a difference.
Well, what do you mean? You were saying best like in history.
Coe and Ovett at the time were like the number one milers in the world, battling it out. And I'm not. Josh Kerr's really good. I think maybe by the end of the season he could be number 2. But like,
no, Jakob will still end the year as world number 1 unless Kerr goes on a tear after Worlds. So that's part of it. So yeah. Are they on the Coe, Cram, Ovett level yet? I wouldn't say so. But look, if one of them shows up and wins, they're world champions. That's enough to be remembered and go down as a legend. And if one of them, Kerr already has an Olympic medal. If one of them wins the Olympics next year, then I think you can put them on that level, even though they don't have the world records.
Yeah. I mean, to be the legend, you got to win the Olympics. People are pointing out here. Well, here's someone saying there was a non-Q1 year of 143.9.
No, he was a typo. 144.9. Sorry, the previous fastest non-qualifier was 144.9. This year, 144.3 didn't make it.
And I'm raving about how fast Max Bergen was. When he only ran 143.7 at age 17, 1 month. Now, I didn't quiz him on his age. But I think we're seeing with Jakob, Niels Laros, people can run fast at a young age. Niels Laros is 18. He just ran 144. There's no question. And he's not an 800-meter runner.
Yeah.
So can someone else run 143 at a year younger? I think it's possible.
I mean, Kipchoge probably, I still don't think he was 18 when he won Worlds, but he might have been 20. He beat 2 legends. Yeah, obviously it is possible to run really, really fast and be among the best in the world in your teenage years. It's rare.
There's a comment here by Thomas Lester. Let'sRun.com should put together a 4x1 mile festival, offer $500,000 for the winning team. The problem is with 4 by mile, it could very easily turn into a boring race. Like some team just gets too far ahead or something. Probably not. Great. Look at these list of countries. Great Britain, they'd be good. Spain, they'd be really good. USA, they'd be pretty good. Norway, Norway, third and fourth. Ethiopia. What's missing from this list, John?
Well, Kenya's clearly missing, and that's an insult to include Ethiopia over Kenya. Come on, but I was looking. I'm like, oh, who are the best mile nations right now? Great Britain and Spain, and I guess Kenya's up there. Come on, Kipsang was 4th at Worlds. Chariot's been running fast. Not at his PRs, but he's still pretty fast. Reynold Chariot was in the world final. Kenya obviously deserves to be mentioned in that sentence.
I guess, but one of my takeaways from Worlds, I thought maybe we do a little more analysis of the meet as a whole. Canada men are just not showing up, but I need to go back and sort of compare that to recent years. They just haven't been that good recently at all. There's been a lot of drug busting, Kenya. I don't know. Am I just starting to question everything? Is that fair assessment to make, or it's just more competitive? The Ethiopian men are much better than they were 10 years ago. Is that fair? The British have stepped up. The Spanish have stepped up. So it just makes it harder. But I feel like they're just used the steeplechasers aren't even good.
Right. Well, El Bakali and Gum is the world record holder, and El Bakali, I think, had the ability to break it. So you got two like very, very good generational talents in there. I do think you're missing a Kenyan stud or two. And maybe when Yoni becomes that one, he wins. Korea is injured, but he's a two-time global champion. And are they really doing that much worse than last year? I mean, they got bronze medal in the steeplechase with Kibawat. They got a silver in the 10K. Last year, they got a silver in the 10K. They got a bronze medal in the steeplechase. We haven't had the 5K yet to compare it. Seems pretty comparable to last year.
Daniel Binu. Because, I guess coming in, what medals did I expect? Like, what do we have from 15? I would have thought maybe. Steeple, I get one. 10? Probably not. They got one medal, so I take it all back. Kenya, what a meet the men are having. Oh, unbelievable.
No, good. I mean, great night for Jamaica. That's what I mean. The Jamaican supposed to be no cheering in the press box. Jamaicans in the mix zone. At least one of them was losing his mind when Watson won, and they were pretty loud when Danielle Williams won as well. So
I thought it was like a religious revival from one guy.
Yeah, I was like,
maybe you've seen God or something. It was. I'm not sure what was going on with that one guy.
Yeah, but I guess when you're Jamaica and you don't get any medals, you don't get a win in the 100, and you're used to one of those, finally getting a gold medal is a pretty big deal. So I'm not going to excuse it, but that's at least the explanation behind it. What about the experience you've had in Budapest now? Well, you've been here for 2 days. You've been to the stadium both nights. What do you make of the crowd, the atmosphere, the general vibe of the city, the meet itself? Anything strike you from that?
Well, John, I thought you were going to talk about the North American sweep in the women's hammer throw. Oh, the World Athletics site is down.
I guess we have to skip it.
They tweeted out today that that the live results will only work during the thing, and then the people were saying supposedly they didn't pay for the bonus internet to keep the regular site up, but I'm not sure if that's true or not. What I think in general about the meet, it's loud in there. They really start cheering. Like, maybe I'm just used to these, like, because you're up in the upper deck where we are. You're upper deck, right?
Yeah.
You can see better at home. People just start cheering, going nuts.
400 hurdles final, they were screaming, even though Bowl ended up winning in a blowout.
Yeah, like they were into it. And it's just a great crowd. I think it's a really good Worlds. I like the crowd. Everyone seems to have fun. Like the European Worlds, you get people from a lot of countries to come. I mean, I guess it happens everywhere.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't happen everywhere because Europe, you've got more population. Europe is the beating heart of the sport of athletics. You've got a lot of countries in a relatively small area. So it's easier to get, there are a ton of Irish came here. A bunch of Italians were here for the high jump. There were Norwegians here for Ingebrigtsen and Warholm. You will get some at these other Worlds in Eugene or Beijing, but it's easier if you're an Irish athletics fan. You're looking at the schedule. You say, oh, women's 1500 final on Tuesday, women's 400 final on Wednesday. I'll fly in for 2 days. I'll catch a couple action and I'll fly right back. You can't doing that to get to Eugene, Oregon. Sorry, no, that's like a week-long ordeal. Doing it to get to Budapest, a lot easier. So my takeaway. Oh, the other thing, and the attendance is good. It's got to have been over 30,000 pretty much every night. I mean, the stadium's not 100% full, but a lot of fans.
Yeah, the stadium seems to me like a Berlin, like a 50,000 plus stadium, but it's not. It's 35. Whatever it is, it looks very big when you're in there. It sounds very loud. Like, well, I guess Eugene only sat like 15,000 or something, so it makes sense. It's twice as big as that, but
yeah. But the thing about, like, Eugene had this small stadium, and I'm not convinced if it was 30,000, they would have been close to selling out because they didn't sell out many of the sessions at 15,000. But Doha, they had to cordon off areas of the stadium, which was not like enormous for the first half of the meet. And even then, the stands were like half full, and then they started busing people in, and the attendance picked up. But my takeaway here is Worlds, we have it every 2 years. It needs to be in Europe at least every 4 years. It should be Europe and then somewhere else in the rest of the world. Europe, somewhere else in the rest of the world. Because Europe, you're going to get a great atmosphere. It's easier for most fans to get to. And that way you can still spread it around the world. But look at the European Championships last year in Munich. Great atmosphere. Look at the Commonwealth Games in Great Britain. You've got a lot of countries that have at least a decent interest, or at least if they hosted the World Championships, would be able to get a lot of people coming. So that's my new guiding principle. And I think they used to do this until recently, but they need to go back to it. Europe at least every 4 years.
We have one guy in the chat saying he's glad we started our show early because he's in Britain. Worlds last year, John, was like middle of the day or at night at Hayward? Middle of the day?
It was middle of the night for Great Britain. Like Seb Coe said that they hemorrhaged millions of broadcasting hours by having it in the West Coast of the United States.
Huge mistake. I'm sorry. Never. Like
he said that.
I don't want to say never again, but even for the Olympics, it needs to be early. Like, I'm sorry. Europe is the heart and soul of track and field, and Africa too. Like, they're the same time zone essentially. So, like, I honestly think you should never have a Worlds or Olympics when their shit's in the middle of the morning.
No, I mean, Seb Coe said, "Look, we'd love to go back to the United States, but if we ever have it there again in Worlds, it needs to." Basically, he's like, "We really like it to be on the East Coast because of the time zone."
Well,
thing.
guess what's going to happen in LA 2028? They're going to put it all primetime East Coast.
Europe
screwed again, man.
The Olympics is different because NBC pays so much money to the IOC that they're going to say we want the stuff in American prime time, and the Olympics will do it.
100%. I mean, like Britain. Wow, you're going to be watching the entire.
I'm sorry for the Brits.
Olympics
That's
in the middle of the
unfortunate.
night.
At least for the Tokyo Olympics, the 12-hour time difference actually wasn't that bad for Americans because you could just watch the morning sessions in the evening and the evening sessions in the morning. But West Coast of the U.S. for Europe is pretty sucky.
All right, people here are saying Janae Cassenvoy from Boston, Missouri, silver medal. She started her hammer career at Johnson. All right, baby, Johnson County Community College. Thanks to Coach Philip Grace for hammer beginnings. I mean, that's the thing. Like all these, like the hammer throw. I mean, we're not a field event site, but even if I'm going to rank the field events, right? Like the long jump is one of the more higher profile. Well, maybe more so the U.S. going back to like Carl Lewis or something, but like Tentoglu, final jump. When we're in the media, like it's hard to really follow the field events, but he gets the gold in the final jump.
Well,
this guy's clutch.
It's more than that. Look at this was the situation in the long jump heading into the final round. You had Tentoglu and Wayne Pinnock of Jamaica tied with the best mark of 8.50 meters. So then the tiebreaker after that goes to the second best mark. Pinnock's was 8.40 and Tentoglu was 8.39. So that was the stakes going into the final round. And Pinnock jumps 8.38. Tentoglu jumped 8.52. Though if he had jumped 8.41 or better, he would have also clinched gold because that would have improved his second best mark. But that was the stakes. It was tied, and then it was also 1 centimeter apart on their second best box.
I apologize. I'm giving him too much credit. He did not need to jump 8.52. I thought he had to.
No, he didn't.
Could have saved it. That'd be kind of funny, right? Because it would have said it would have said like 8.47, which isn't the lead, but then he would get the lead. Like I don't know how they would even do it in the scoring system. It'd be weird.
He'd go from being T1 to he'd be going from 2 to 1, even though his best mark wouldn't change. That's just the way the long jump works. But Jamaica, 2-3-4. Wayne Pinnock, Tajay Gale, Kerry McLeod in the long jump. When are we gonna get American long jumping going again? When was the last time? Is it Jeffrey Henderson was probably the last American to win a global title in the long jump, 2016 Rio.
What happened to your guy, John?
Jarian Lawson?
Yeah.
He came very close in Doha. Actually, Jarian Lawson may have medaled last year at the World Championships. I think he got the bronze behind Tentoglu and Ehammer of Switzerland, but
I feel like you just missed. Oh, here it is. Nope.
Oh, damn it. Wait,
are
you looking at the correct results? Wang Jian's the reigning champion in the long jump? Am I making it? Oh, my God.
Yeah.
I didn't know. All right.
John
I totally
Boston.
forgot that one. I clearly did not pay very much attention to the long jump in Eugene last year.
Fair mistake by Jonathan Galt. Our
Well,
apologies. If
yeah.
you want to cancel your Supporters Club subscription, do so now.
Why am I thinking Lawson? Sorry, why am I thinking Lawson had a good run?
Maybe he almost made the world or something, John. I'm trying to figure out like what happened during Lawson last year. Because I thought this guy, I mean, he was the Jesse Owens, right? He did the 100,
200 long jump triple at Arkansas in 2016. Yeah.
And now he's 29 years old and just never really had much at the senior level. That he had the like suspension that was overturned, which can't be helpful.
No, Thomas Lester, you saying that I'm wrong. He had to jump 8.52 to beat Pinnock. Pinnock had the best second mark, but you're misunderstanding the situation. If he jumped 8.41, that would have been his second best mark, which would have surpassed Pinnock's second best mark. You see what I'm saying? So that's why he only needed 841 instead of 852 in the last round. But of course, he made it simple and just broke the tie.
Okay, Jerry and Lawson, for the record, 4th at the Olympics in 2016. He did get a silver in 2017. He was 4th.
Well, he almost won the Olympics in 2016. He had that his like hand barely brushed the pit. So
I mean, just think how different his life would be. You're an Olympic champion. Like, wow. John, maybe you remember the World Indoors last year where he was the 4th place finisher.
Yeah, that might have been it. All right. Well, that is probably going to do it for this episode of the podcast. We went an hour and 10, and there were no distance finals tonight. So you're getting your money's worth, Supporters Club members. Couple finals again. We have no distance finals tomorrow night either. That's the crazy thing.
Preview tomorrow. Oh, okay, good.
All right, yeah. Well, it's going to be a pretty quick. Well, we got the 200 finals, which is going to be fun. Sha'Carri and Noah Lyles going for double gold.
Wait, we didn't even talk about the car crash.
Oh my God! All right. Let's get to that. This was all right. We don't even need to preview this stuff tomorrow. Noah Lyles probably is going to win the 200. Shericka Jackson is going to win the 200. That's my picks.
Apparently, Aaron Knighton was talking big on NBC.
Okay, Aaron Knighton didn't run 9.7 looking easy like Noah did. But yeah, this was the wild thing. They're calling it eye gate. The British press, when they smell a story, it's just like a flock of piranhas going together because they all do the interviews together every time. They've got like the 8 British dailies that are here.
I mean, it's crazy. They are fiercely like competitive in some sense, but they definitely collaborate and stuff. And I had not seen the British print guys since I was here. And then usually I see them, but like back in the day, I used to have Mo Farah, so they would always like be down in the mix zone, like when Mo came in. And they had Josh, but I don't know whether I didn't even see them for that much last night.
I saw them; they were all over Josh.
I just saw
they don't film the interviews with video, so they're not in the same section.
But all of a sudden today, like a pack of them, no joke, like 10 guys come running down. What's going on? And then Matt Lawton's like, "What did he call it?"
He called it eye gate. I'm just like, wait, is this about the Andrew Hudson thing? He's like, oh yeah. So this was they were like this. They smelled the scoop. It was crazy though because I was going back up to the mix zone after an interview, and some journalist has just got this thing on his phone, and he's like watching the meet, and he just sees this collision. And in case you haven't been following, the warm-up track is across this little river, and another part of Budapest.
It's across the river.
It's not across the Danube; it's across like a tributary of the Danube, but it's like maybe half a mile away. So to get them from the warm-up track to the stadium, they put them all on golf carts. And apparently, if you advance to the next round, you get to take the golf cart back. And if you don't, you have to walk.
No.
That's what I've been told. So anyway, there was a group. The first heat of the men's 200 meters semifinals were on their golf cart, driving over. And there was another golf cart going along a different path and is making a turn. And it just looks like instead of checking to see the coast was clear, they just turned and crashed right into this golf cart carrying the 200-meter semifinalists. There was a volunteer in the first cart fell out. And then of this group of 200 guys, Noah Lyles is riding in the front row. He seems okay, but Andrew Hudson of Jamaica, he's like grabbing his eye afterwards. And they catch there's a hot mic on there, and Noah Lyles is saying, I think he got glass in his eye. He's saying he got glass in his eye. I'm like, how do you get glass in your eye in a collision with a vehicle? I don't know. Hudson did not stop to talk to in the recording section with video, so we didn't talk to him. But from what I understand, he essentially said the race was a blur and my vision's a blur. He was happy, you could tell he was like squinting. They didn't let him do the video stuff because he had to go to the medical tent. And what ended up happening is because of this incident, they moved this heat. It was supposed to be the first heat, but they actually ran it as the third heat so that Hudson could go get his eye checked out. They eventually say, okay, you can run. He gets fifth in the heat. Noah Lyles wins it, 19.76. Looked amazing.
Just wow.
And that's why I'm like, this guy's
letting up too.
Gonna win. I mean, I don't know if he was letting up, but he
didn't need to push it. I'll say that.
He looked good in that last 100. Hudson gets fifth, but they file an appeal, basically like saying, hey, this accident screwed me over, and because there's 9 lanes in the final, they can add him in. So,
and what does this prove?
What, we should just be taking 9 to the
take
final
9 to the finals,
event?
and then for the qualifying, you take top three positions, no times. I think one of the definite successes of this meet is the no time qualifiers. It makes the races a lot more interesting. It's easier for the fans. I think you extend it to the sprints.
Well, but my question is, though, the one thing that's nice is when we have a situation like this, you don't have to bump anyone out. You can just say, oh, well, we'll take 9 to the final instead of running 8. But
it would be difficult in the sprint if something happened. Then you can't put a 10th person.
Right.
You're out. A distance event, an 800, people could share lanes. So the 100, 200, 400. Yeah, what do? You have a runoff or something? I don't know what the situation is. You can't take someone out who deserved it.
Well, do you say like, do you have a 9th spot as like a provisional qualifier? You're like, hey, you're in unless there's some weird incident, but that, I feel like that leads to a cascading scenario. Of
when do we have incidents like this before?
Well, we had in the women's 100 where 2 people were tied for the final time qualifier they were separated by thousandths, and they were just like, oh, the tie was so close, they just took 9.
I think a situation like that, you can draw a name. When you need to add someone because of some like appeal or something crazy, like somebody tackles a runner or something, I don't know what you would do. Someone smarter than me can come up with it. If you're smart, put your ideas in the comments. But John, my question was, were they broadcasting this live at the time, or they just happened to have it on replay?
The way it looked was they would cut away in between heats or whatever, in between events, and then show like wide shots of the stadium. And my guess is they just happened to catch this collision as it was happening. It didn't look like, based on the way Rob Walker, the World Feed commentator, reacted to it, it's not like he said, and now we cut to something that we saw on the warm-up track on the main concourse. He was just, he was talking about the race that just happened. And he's like, oh, and what have we here? And like, he's reacting in real time. So I think it was just they happened to be rolling and this thing happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. I said last night, people love conspiracies. Was the golf cart thing staged for Netflix, John? Thank you. Bad for going there. People are not liking my idea for the sprints. They said Sha'Carri would not have been in the final.
That's not true at all.
I'm saying top 3 at each 3 semifinals, so you'd have 9. So if she was third in her semifinal, she would have made it. So even if you get a difficult draw where you might get one time thing, she still would have made it.
All right, you know what I'm rooting for? Robert roots for a race to be rerun. I'm rooting for a runoff, one-on-one, like we saw at we were supposed to see at the 2012 Olympic trials between Jenna Batamo and Allison Felix. That would have been a runoff to make the Olympic team. I want to see that in the sprints. It's really like
Felix said she was going to run the 100. What happened? They tied for third place.
They tied for third place in the 100, and the tiebreak. I mean, USATF basically didn't have a tie-breaking procedure, so they had to make it up on the fly. And they said a runoff is the fairest way. It would have been sick. Could you imagine?
It was the day after it was the final day, right? They're going to extend the trial today. Right?
I don't remember exactly, but it would have been amazing. A one-off race to go to the Olympics, and Felix had already made the team in the 200, or was going to make the team in the 200. I don't know. It was she had some wiggle room, but that would have been phenomenal. I was so pumped as a track fan to see it, and it never happened. So that's my dream, is for, we wouldn't see it at Worlds. I think they just share the bronze medal. But for an Olympic team to see a runoff for a spot in the sprints, the final spot in the team, I'd love to see that.
What's her name pulled out and gave Felix the spot?
Yes, and there were a lot of like.
Did she get on a relay?
I think she made it in the relay, but there was a lot of like behind the scenes, rumors of negotiating and stuff. And Alison Felix was obviously America's sweetheart.
We need to look into that. I hope she got paid. Right? Is that the only scenario? Or what?
I mean, look, I don't know exactly what happened.
What else could
but
there
my
be?
sense is like someone applied some pressure there and maybe was paid, or I don't know. I mean, it's ridiculous this doesn't happen. I still feel bad for Jenna Batamo, but at the same time, she was the one who said she wasn't going to do it. So we've never got an adequate explanation on this, and it's 11 years later. Maybe now is the time Jenna Batamo opens up and tells the whole story, because the fact that we were robbed as track fans of a runoff for the last spot in the 100.
Yeah, Tom.
I'm still not over it.
Thomas Lesser did it. It was going to be Monday. It was going to be great, man. Like, I was excited for it. Got canceled. No, Tarmo didn't run the relay. They ran a world record.
She didn't run. I think she was. She was in the relay pool, right?
Well, wait. At the Olympics, she didn't even run around. So no. You don't give up that spot. If she didn't run.
Well, no, she would have. They would take the fourth placer in the 100 in the relay pool. But they had a pretty great team already, so I can understand how she didn't get in the team. I do wonder, did she run a heat in London and get the gold medal? I'm looking now. She ran the first round, which makes sense. And then they subbed in, they had Tiana Bartoletta, Alison Felix, Bianca Knight, Carmelita Jeddah in the final and broke the world record. So
Carmelita Jeddah, a good friend of mine.
Yeah. I guess if you're just going by straight finish in the 100, she would have been on the team, but you don't always do that in the Olympics. So I don't know if it was a travesty she wasn't on the team in the 100 meter 4x1 final.
But
okay,
I feel like we needed, the cart gate, whatever it's called.
Oh yeah, you need a few controversies. I mean, I feel bad for Andrew Hudson. I don't want this to happen to someone, but there's always something wacky that happens in a world championship. So that was a requisite wackiness. All right, somehow this has been our longest podcast of the championship.
That's not possible.
Or maybe it wasn't as long as the 1500. But it's our second longest, even though we had no distance finals to discuss. So
because we're not as tired, it's an hour earlier, John.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna wrap this up. Thank you for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow to wrap up the 200s. And we've got the 800 semifinals on the women's side.
The thing, Brooks Beast. They're bringing it. Nia Akins. She may not be a dark horse after tomorrow.
All right.
For a medal, John.
I saw this well then. On the board, someone said that both Mo and Hodgkinson are listed at plus 125. So they're like arbitrage opportunity here. If you bet both of them, as long as you think only those two can win, you lock in profit. Do you make that bet?
Well, I'm not in the States now, so I'd have to go in Bovada.
But would you put down like $300 and say, all right, I'm winning at least
how much am I going to make?
That would make you $75.
You betting 300 total or 600?
Oh, I'm trying to think. No, that would be 600, right? Yeah, you'd have to bet like a significant amount to make money.
Let me put this in my betting calculator here just to double check this. $100. I make $225. So if I bet.
All right,
you'd have to bet $600 to win 75, right?
Yeah, that's it's steep.
No. 300.
If you bet 300,
150 and 150, 150. No, you need one of those bets to win. Whatever. Confident one of them's going to win it.
I'm pretty confident. But
that shit happens. Man.
I mean, Mary Murad's a wild card.
What if somebody falls? Something crazy.
What if Hodgkinson and Mo take each other out? Rerun the race. The Robert Johnson rule. All right. So yeah, that's gonna do it on day 6 from Budapest. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you to our UK viewers for staying up late and watching us. We'll be back on Friday. Only 3 days of Worlds left, but we got some great finals still on tap. 5Ks, 800s. 200s, and the relays. It's going to be fun. Let'sRun.com/subscribe. If you're somehow watching this live and haven't joined up yet, now's your opportunity. See you on Friday.